I'm streaming from Los Angeles, California, which is originally Tovangar, unceded Gabrielino Tongva territory. And where are you streaming in from, Jess?
I'm in Bend, Oregon. Again, yeah, stolen land of Wasco, Warm Springs, and Klamath tribes. Central Oregon.
I didn't know that it was Klamath land, and actually, I remember driving through there last time. A lot of things were named Klamath. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's so interesting. We just did this. Okay, I'm going probably too off topic, so you can just like
No,
reroute
no,
me.
actually, yeah, just tell us and I'll do the intro. I'll do the intro eventually.
Okay, yeah, so I just did this on Juneteenth. We did like a hike up to this butte. It's called Pilot Butte, and I feel Black Lives Matter, kind of just also celebrating emancipation, or not really emancipation, but like freedom. And at the top is this like brass or bronze map of like directions, and you
Mm.
can see 360 degrees of mountain ranges. It's like a really beautiful place, and on them is the colonized names of everything. And so it was just really interesting. It came really forward, like, oh, this would be a really great thing to have redone,
Yeah.
or at least transcribed, like with the real names, and then maybe like in parentheses, like the colonized names.
Mhm.
Um, and it was a really important place because on Pilot Butte, the KKK actually used to have rallies and burn crosses. And so in Central Oregon, that is like a really real thing that still is active. And so hiking the butte, it was called like taking back the butte. And it was just like this really beautiful way to celebrate freedom.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, and I'm looking forward to talking more about colonization and decolonization later in our
Yeah.
talk, and uh, what small actions we can take as individuals, and larger things we can get involved with
Mm-hmm.
um, for that. But to start, I'll just introduce the show. This is Flute Loops, and this is stream number 9. And it is my weekly concerts and conversations series where I bring on guests who inspire me. And especially since the global movement for equality and Black lives in particular has picked up speed um, with the unprecedented visibility and specific situation that COVID created. I've been bringing on people who inspire me in specifically social justice ways and who I can learn and unlearn from how to become a better ally and contribute to this movement, and hopefully share that with friends and family and even strangers who are going through the same kind of awakening um, as I am. So this is Jessica Amascual. And Jess, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Yes, I'm Jessica Amascual, or Tita Jess, or just Tita. I have recently relocated to Bend, Oregon, from Los Angeles. Actually, I was there for 15 years, so I just missed it, Kenzie. Um, and moving to Bend has been like a really awakening experience. Just it's like a 92% white city. It's like also sometimes known as the whitest city in America. So that's a fun fact. And so moving here has just really pulled me forward to social justice work from my own identity. And so I'm excited to talk about that today with Kenzie and whatever else comes up.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. And as you viewers can see in the chat, Jess is surrounded by some beautiful singing bowls here. That is part of your sound healing work that you do, right?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Yes. I teach and meditation and sound healing and different, let me turn that off, and employ a bunch of different healing modalities, mostly around social justice.
Cool. And because I found out that you do that while preparing for this, I thought maybe we could do a sound bath together. So thank you for uh, being open to trying this with me. So we're going to open with a 5-minute sound bath. And yeah, Jess, take it away with how you usually frame these sound baths.
Okay, yeah. So each bowl is aligned with one of our chakras. And so what I normally do in a class is I'll ask, what's coming up for you recently that we can kind of work through, like what energy can I help you move through? And so we'll just kind of model that now, and I'll pose that question to you, Kenzie. Yeah, like what's coming up for you recently for yourself that you kind of want to move through yourself?
Yeah, so recently one thing for me has been, as I learn more about uh, the the Black history in America and the history of supremacy in our country, I sort of turned inward and recognized that I had a lot of internalized prejudices against my own multiracial and queer identity, and I hadn't really owned those or celebrated them in ways that I might otherwise have in a different society, an imaginary society.
Yeah, so it's we actually haven't talked about this, but I want to bring this forward too for our conversation. Is whenever I do my work of social justice, like healing, community healing, healing justice, it's always centered in our personal identities. So it's awesome that that organically happened for you as you looked at this. That's also how it happened for me a few years ago as I ventured into my own healing and then also moving that through to community healing. Um, and so when we talk about our personal identities and like how can we speak our truth and move that forward, two chakras are kind of working together with that, and that's our solar plexus chakra. It's often depicted and visualized the color yellow. It's our personal power and our willpower, and so this is like your solar plexus, your diaphragm, and then also the energy of your throat. So that's allows you to like bring the energy from solar plex, which is your power, bring it forth through your truth, speaking your truth, or expressing your truth. So it's so interesting too. You as a musician and a flautist, that's a lot of throat chakra energy coming forth. And so I wonder too how your identity and also your journey into like really playing the music that speaks to your soul moves that energy through or how it can. And so, yeah, we'll be kind of touching on, solar plexus chakra, throat chakra, and then also obviously with our queer identity, and we're trying to like harness our sacred sexuality, and so we'll really be also tuning into like the to the sacral chakra, which is like the D bowl or note.
So these are actually the same chakras that we used in our like example before we went on the stream, right? Just for my
Yes.
checking the notes. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even though I gave a different prompt slightly.
No, it's the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Same stuff.
Great.
Well,
So,
actually, and I'll just want to add one. I'll add one, and I
okay.
have to say it both because we haven't even identified also that we're both Pinay, like we're both Filipina,
Yes.
and something that I want to bring forward too is like the heart chakra, and also when we talk about compassion and kindness and meditation, and also finding that dignity in ourselves and our personal identities, and then seeing that dignity also in others. So that's like the place from which we can lift up, which I'll talk about later, but like Black trans folks, is from compassion. And so we'll also probably do a little bit of heart chakra, which which is like the note of F.
Okay.
So we can add that in a little bit too.
Great.
So D, E, F, G.
Yes, and let's introduce your dog because he or she may be part of the performance.
That's Oscar. I have him locked out right now in the room. And he hold on one second. Let me just open the door because he'll probably stop barking if he can see me.
Yeah, he can be included.
You're good, Bubba. He's a big dog. He's a mastiff, and he's very protective. And when he can't see me, like right now, he's guarding the door.
Oh, okay.
Away from me, like at attention.
Oh my gosh, Oscar.
The tractor,
Wonderful.
just noise.
Yeah, yeah. My mom is also watching from Honolulu, who moved here. Sorry, not here. Where is here? Who immigrated to the U.S. When she was 6 years old, and I want to take the correction that we mispronounced Pinay, or there may be multiple pronunciations, but uh, we're both Pinay, and we can
There we go.
talk about that after. I love talking about language afterwards. I love talking about language. We can talk about it afterwards, but first, let's do our meditation with Oscar. Beautiful. I'm going to turn off my echo.
I'm just gonna move this closer.
Cool. And I love that your cat joined us at the end too.
Oh yeah, I have 2 dogs, 2 cats, 8 chickens, and 2 goats, and about 10,000 bees. I've got a whole situation.
Amazing. Did you raise animals and uh I forget what the verb is for taking care of bees. That's why I'm talking so slow. But did you do that stuff before you moved out to Bend or previously?
No, we've had like cats. We've had the same cats and dogs, like, but we haven't had any kind of farmish animals until we moved to Oregon.
Cool.
Yeah, but it
What
was a
made
dream.
you? Oh, actually, we have so much to talk about, but ah
Yeah.
I love animals and also uh dream about sustainable agriculture, even though I haven't gotten that much into it in my life. So I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this, but
That'll be another conversation.
yeah, another conversation. We have a petition beginning in the chat for every Flute Loops to have animal guests as well.
This is Norman.
Hi, Norman.
He might scratch me. He's not that nice.
Oh. Oh,
But he's
boy.
purring, so we're good.
Good. So, are you comfortable? Do you want a second to move? Because we're going to be hanging out and talking for a little while now.
Okay.
Okay, cool. I've never done a duet quite like that before. I liked it a lot.
I'm excited to hear it back because like all I can hear and feel is like the bowls. So I'm excited to hear.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and because of Zoom, we did have some like stuff cutting in and out, but I think that just the fact of it being something new and us like trying it out, we ended up with some really cool moments. So I'm excited to listen back to.
Cool.
So I wrote a couple of things based on what you said before we started doing the opening number that I would love to hear more about from you. But first, I guess we should start with learning about your background and what led you to the Groundswell Fund, which is where you are currently employed and working for social justice for Black trans justice. Yeah, would love to hear about that.
Yeah, so kind of touched a little bit on what started my journey towards this work in our pre-duet introduction. Yeah, so about 6 years ago, my grandma died, and she was just the matriarch of the family. She moved to the States with my mom and 2 kids as all young children. So similar to you, I'm like first generation, but like sometimes I'll say like I'm 1.5 in a way, since my mom was young when she moved here too. And so with her passing, her and I were really close, and she helped raise me. And with her passing, I felt this sudden um, like fear of like losing my culture, and something that I like sort of was proud of and talked about and engaged with at times here and there, but for the most part, I would say I have pretty like much assimilated at that time to my surroundings. And so when she died, I was just like, no, like our culture can't die with her. I need to like reclaim, remember, like relearn, so that like one day I can continue to like pass on our legacies. And so I started really digging into my lineage, and also really appreciate your mama's correction of the Pinay and Pinay. I really, everything that I know about, not everything, but a lot of what I engage with in terms of Filipino culture is really just a relearning and a reclaiming, and not necessarily words and things that have been natural or organic in my life, just because of the way of assimilation that my family kind of undertook. And so always learning. Yeah, so I started with my own identity and like what my cultural identity is and how to get more in tune with it or in touch with it. And then 2016 came around and, mm, you know, social justice issues also came full forward for me as well with that. And so kind of the two kind of were happening alongside each other, me reclaiming my identity and relearning, and then also that was in the framework of social justice. And so that's how
Um,
it began.
I I feel like I don't want to ask this question, which is why I'm going to ask it. Uh, what happened in 2016 that brought social justice to the forefront for you? And I'm afraid to ask it because I feel like it makes me sound ignorant, but I think that's part of the work is asking the questions that might make you sound
Yeah.
ignorant.
No. I mean, it's like, yeah, a place and time, right? So for me, 2016 is just really obvious. Like apparent to me is just like the election of Donald Trump.
Okay.
And everything and all the ugliness that that brought forward. Not even 2016, so like leading up to that even, but then with the realization that this is really our reality for 4 years and like what's going to come up, like what is being threatened, who are the most vulnerable people now that he's in office. And
Mm-hmm.
like how is that going to affect not only me but people that I love and also people that I don't know that also I hold dignity for in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can see as the years pass, like all of the horrors that have come to be. And so learning about my culture and reclaiming that all alongside all of these sort of travesties has been life changing and has brought me to the point where I am. I also at the time owned a meditation studio and in Los Angeles, in South Pasadena. And so sort of shifting to how do I practice, how am I appropriating and practicing cultures that are not mine? How can I reframe things? How can I be in right relation and in reciprocity and reparations? And like, how do I do this thing called life correctly or like the best that I can? Because I think up until then, I was I was sort of asleep. Um, and so
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel right now. Like up until last month, I was kind of asleep. And like even the fact that like I uh was sobbing on the night of the election in 2016 didn't like for whatever reason at that time create the awakening. Like it is possible to
mhm,
realize a thing and then fall back asleep or be like, well, I don't know how I'm as an individual. I'm gonna make change, so I'm just gonna not try and not fail that
yeah,
way.
no, that's real. That's totally real. And I think that that's one thing. So yeah, so like being a perfectionist, that's also something that is not being a perfectionist. Perfectionism is something that is perpetuated by white supremacy and like needing to be perfect. And so what that does is it keeps us at bay because we're not fully there yet. So unless you can compete with white supremacy, like we can't,
Yeah,
it's
and
all
even though
how,
I
go
sorry,
ahead.
can you say that last sentence again?
Oh yeah. So like how if white supremacy really is, keeping us at bay by like making sure that kind of imposing perfectionism upon us, um, like we really can't confront it because we're not perfect yet. We don't know enough yet. It has this all these ideas of like cultural competency, like, am I good enough? Can I come forward? Like, what can I do? How do I participate? And like, no one's going to listen to me. I'm like a brown woman.
Ooh, let's go
Um,
into that a little bit more because white supremacy as a more general concept is new to me as well. Uh, you know, recently, if I heard white supremacy, I would think, oh, we're talking about the KKK.
yeah.
But uh, more broadly, it refers to one group of people, which in this country and in many other places is like self identified as white, just based on whatever uh, uh, traits. It's so arbitrary, but
It's so arbitrary.
but basically, it's like okay, one group of people is supreme, and then in order to keep our power, others need to be less. And so that's, correct me if I'm wrong, the really basic explanation of the more general usage of white supremacy.
Yeah, I feel
Could you
like
add to
that's
that?
correct. Yeah, I can add to that. So yeah, so white supremacy is also white nationalism, which is like the KKK and like Three Percenters and other groups like this that are really loud about things. But there's also this dominant culture of white supremacy, which is white, male, Christian, straight, cis, able-bodied. Um, and so probably other things that I'm forgetting too, but like what is like the like economically mobile, so educated. So all these things that like this is the dominant culture, this is what we all aspire to be. And this is like the most supreme thing that you can be. And so anything
Yeah.
that's under that is like a subordinate, not subordinate culture, but um, is like a subculture or like a, I'm blanking on the word. It's just not a dominant culture,
Okay.
like
Yeah.
marginalized groups.
So like the existence of a dominant culture is tied to somebody has to be supreme, and in
Yes.
our case, white is the thing that is supreme, and all of the
Yeah.
other characteristics that you mentioned. Okay,
Yeah, and
thanks.
so white supremacy also not only refers to skin color, but also all the other things. So white supremacy upholds this idea of supremacy. And so anything that's not like white, Christian, male, straight, cis, all these things is not good enough. And so we talked a little about earlier, just about like internalized racism, internalized feelings of not being good enough. And that's all part of white supremacy culture. And like that's on purpose. Like that is like a cultivated idea. And the other thing with white supremacy too is that there's been different groups and borders and wars and changes throughout time that has like assimilation too, that has like made some people who weren't white now they're white. So we think about Italians, Irish, Jewish people. Like at one point they weren't white and now they are. So it is very arbitrary. It has nothing to do with skin color, right? It has to do with like ethnicities and even like religious groups. So
Right.
it's totally weird
And it changes. It
it changes.
evolves with society. Like who gets to be in the supreme group, which, as you, the word that you use for that is dominant. The dominant culture is basically, uh, is it the group that is supreme that
Yeah,
falls into the white category?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's really helpful. To clarify that language with you because, uh, I'm a language nerd, and so, I love, new terms because they bring new concepts and new understanding, and just broaden, how I can look at the world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, wanted to clarify that with you, and I might jump into if I hear you use more terms that I'm like, oh, I really want to deeply understand this meaning more.
Yeah,
Is it okay if I stop you and
totally. And I
ask you
might not
more?
know like dictionary definitions.
Oh
I wouldn't
yeah,
know
but
actually.
yeah,
Yeah,
contextually is good. I don't. Yeah, more than I
yeah.
have, and if I'm asking you about a term.
But yeah, so just what brought me then to Groundswell Fund and the work that I'm doing now, only like not only with my employer, but also just in my community healing work, is taking a look at that dominant culture group and like looking who are like the most historically oppressed. And like these are the folks that we need to be pooling our resources towards. So here and now in this moment in time, it's like Black trans folks. And so like these are the humans, this is the intersectionality that is so historically oppressed, that their liberation, like my so everything I do is through this lens of liberation and freedom for all. And like knowing that to liberate, like I can't actually be liberated unless everybody is liberated. And that's like the truth of my lens of life. And so focusing my time and energy and resources and healings on those that are most historically oppressed is really liberating everyone. If we liberate Black trans folks, then we're all liberated. Um,
Yes.
because historically what we do is like, okay, well, women can have the right to vote, but not yet Black women or not yet Black people. But and like we'll just take crumbs, right? Like we'll just take all the crumbs until one day maybe we get to be liberated. But really, that's the opposite approach. We need to go from like the bottom up of this hierarchy of supremacy.
Yeah, and, it reminds me that not only is it I, as a marginalized in some ways uh, individual, can only be liberated if the most marginalized and most oppressed people are marginalized, but also that the most oppressed people are the ones who have fought the hardest and like created and catalyzed the changes that we've seen so far. Like Black trans women are at
Exactly.
the forefront of uh, would it be called, I don't know what this movement is called, but like
Liberation.
LGBTQ plus, like, I mean, I'm thinking of Stonewall, I'm thinking of
Yeah.
like gay rights and
Yeah.
LGBT, I don't know what that's called, but
Yeah. I
yeah,
feel like
but
gay.
okay, gay rights, yeah.
Yeah.
But like that was Black trans women starting that.
Yeah.
And we
And then
all
that's like
benefit from it.
we all benefit. And so, yeah, if you think about our liberation, you think about our freedoms to be educated, to marry, to have children, to like anything that we can do now is all because of Black people, of
Mm-hmm.
Black trans people. So we, as queer, as brown women, we wouldn't have any freedom if it wasn't for Black trans people.
Mm-hmm.
And so to always center that in your thought processes and your work, because it's like the intersection of like the most yeah, people that are most marginalized and most forward in our fight for freedom.
Yeah.
And actually, my boss, Vanessa Daniel at Groundswell Fund, she has this quote that I love from a speech she gave at the 2018 Women's Summit in DC, and that is, in our fight for freedom, women are in the majority, women of color are in the lead, and Black women are in the vanguard.
Yes.
Just to
That is
have
so
everything in right.
powerful. Yeah. I've heard that, and I think it might have been on the Groundswell Fund website recently, but it also might have been somewhere else. Like someone else picked it up and is sharing that message right now. Um,
Yeah.
that's, yeah. Vanguard is
I
a
have a
really
piece of art
powerful
where
piece of
I have a
language.
piece of art of that.
That's what I saw then. I must have seen your
Yeah.
art where you wrote that. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, I want everybody to be spreading that around now. It's wonderful. And they can find your art at gather.poet or poetry.
Gather.poetry, yeah.
That poetry on Instagram. Yeah. I'll put a link to Groundswell Fund's website in the archived version of this video because I would love for people to, uh, and myself, to learn more about the work that you guys do. It seems so powerful. And you also mentioned that it's the largest women of color run giving institution in the country to me before we started this stream. That's
Yeah, yeah. And
really huge.
the largest funder of grassroots women of color led organizations, and also led by women of color and trans and queer folks.
Wow. That's the world
Yeah,
I want to live in with more
yeah.
organizations like that. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's almost like a snapshot. So like I think I told you a little bit that I love to think about imagination in this movement in
Yes.
my work, and thinking about like I imagine sometimes in my meditations, like that I lead, what are you doing on your first day of liberation? What does it look like and feel like, and who's there? And what are you doing and what are you thinking about? And so like using your imagination to to see, to envision what that could be like is like part of the practice of making it real. And so like working there has been a total dream because I don't think that I've ever been completely surrounded and led and look up to and have like all of the people be Black, queer, trans people, women of color ever. And so it's just like such a special place.
And you're talking about Groundswell still, or are you talking about Blissful? Are you talking
Groundswell
about?
Fund.
Okay,
Yeah, Groundswell Fund.
just because
Yeah.
you mentioned the healing and the imagination, I wanted to clarify.
Yeah. So there's also this really great podcast that I want people to listen to. It's called Irresistible.
Hmm.
And I get a lot of my inspiration from that. It used to be called Healing Justice. And so yeah, so I came into my social justice practice really from a lens of healing. And then it's really expanded from that. Um, well, also like my background education wise is public policy, and I actually like worked in government for a long time before I started. So I'm like back and forth really. But to me, spirituality and like liberation movement and public policy are all literally so aligned, even though it might not look like that to others. Like that's how it looks like and feels like for me.
Oh man,
And
it's
so
so amazing to hear that.
yeah,
Yeah.
does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it does, because I am a person who has so many different interests and like constantly struggles to figure out how they're all connected, and kind of like I often come against this wall in my own mind of no, you need to be an expert in something,
Mm,
some one thing, and like that is just in the realm of like work and art, and then so like bring social justice into that, and I'm like, where the heck does this fit in? Like, how can I combine all these things, because they all seem different, and how is there enough time in the day to do it all? But hearing you just say like it's all the same, it can all be connected in your
it's
life
all
and
the
your
same.
work, that's huge for me. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and I'm feeling like just for you, if you want to talk about that a
Yeah.
little, if you're feeling like it, we can do that.
Yeah. Well, I've in later in 2016, I had been teaching private flute lessons for a long time, and it was I was kind of thinking, okay, is this reflective of who I am in the world? Am I doing the thing I want to do in the world? Um, y- it is gratifying to help young people, mentor young people, and share the skills that I've learned, but I'm not like making an impact the way I want to, and I'm not doing anything for the environment. The like I feel very close to the earth and nature, and I had never really like acted on that very much in ways that seemed like enough to me. So I went and I joined the organization WOOF, Worldwide
Yeah,
Organization of Organic
I know
Farms.
it.
Yes, just for viewers, which
Yeah.
I'll put a
Amascual,
link.
it's like I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, I know that thing.
great. Yeah, I loved my experience. It was just a few months that I spent on a vineyard in Hood River, Oregon. Actually,
Oh my
uh,
gosh.
I spent a month there, and then I had some other places somewhere in Northern California, a farm in Arizona that was actually not even through WOOF, but I felt so connected, more connected to something that I actually cared deeply about during that time than I had ever before.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, and but I still didn't like know how to keep that momentum in doing the
Yeah.
things that I feel are like are big enough to be like my purpose in life. you know
Yeah.
and so there's a lot in between, but just recently last spring I started doing chamber music improvisation sessions, which if you've watched this before, you'll know about. But this was around another thing that I cared more deeply about than just playing music, which was the feelings and the skills for deep listening and collaboration, and being empathizing and having compassion for the people that you are around, especially when they have, in this case, different musical backgrounds and different life experiences. But I found that to be a microcosm for society that I wanted to share. Um, and so, yeah, so this year I have been working on that a lot, and finally finding something that I felt has a bigger message that uh, could, I hope, be related to social justice as I continue with it. Um, and uh, and in early stages of creating projects that are for the environment directly. Um, but like I mentioned, this is uh, just I started playing flute when I was 10, and it's just now at like 32 that I'm feeling like I'm beginning to combine uh, the things that I care about deeply in the world, and the arts that I excel at, and the skills that I have. And so that is why I was so excited to hear you say what you said about social justice and all the other parts of life coming together.
I just love that so much. And while you were talking, I just decided I felt called to like just pull some tarot cards for you.
Oh, thank you.
It's something I should have maybe asked, but I was just like, no, I just feel really called.
Yes, you
Um,
may.
and so yeah, so one thing before I tell you what I pulled. So for me, I totally struggle with that too for like years. And I'm like, how do I go back and forth, back and forth? Like, how is this connected? How is this sustainable? And the way that it came all together for me is like the idea of liberation. And like, if we center liberation in all that we do, then everything's connected.
Mm.
And like, like wanting to pursue environmental justice, and that is so closely related to healing justice, especially for like indigenous peoples. And it, to me, like everything you're saying is literally so connected. Like even to the point where like there was a point at my studio where I was doing like plant meditation. So there we could do this, we could go into this in a whole other
Oh my
conversation.
gosh, yeah.
There is like certain resonance and sounds that plants make. And you can put like little nodes, these little receptors onto plants and listen to the sounds of plants and like make music from them, like
Yeah, I
synthesize.
think I think that my mom was the one who first told me about that, and that is so cool.
Full
Like
circle.
I also heard about like there was a one person, maybe more than one person, who put sensors on trees and made music out of it, out of the
Yeah,
vibrations they were
yeah.
producing. I gotta find the links to that. I'm gonna put as
Hopefully.
many attributions and references as I can find in the archived version of this video. It's quite a relief to be able to do that because then I don't have to remember them on the spot. Um,
Yeah. But yeah, it's all
but yeah.
related. Like if you think about like sound and like the healing and the expression that comes from that, and how that totally relates to like how you can actually express yourself, and then also cultivate that. Like to me, art is like the most important thing in this moment in time,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the thing that like helps us express, helps us cultivate community and relate to one another in a thing that is so um, can be so like decolonized and something that's so organic. And anyway, I am really excited to hear all of those like little pieces of like what inspires you, because to me it's all related, and it took me
Yeah.
like 10 years also to see how all the things I was interested integrate.
Amazing. This reminds me of the idea I had of starting a podcast that was specifically like talking to different creatives and just like hearing their journey because I know that when I hear enough different kinds of journeys, then I'm going to resonate with something. And I feel like a lot of artists and creatives, especially in their like 20s and 30s right now, are like just wandering, like wishing there were models of different kinds of being an artist or creative, like being able to see themselves or what they like they want to do because they don't have any models of that in the current
Yeah.
like music industry or visual art or whatever it is. But yeah, cool. Before we do uh, we're coming up to the hour, which is crazy because I
How
feel
did
like
that happen?
could talk to you for another like several hours, which we will certainly.
Yeah.
But I want to hear from you about colonization and decolonization a little bit before we go,
Okay.
because we haven't really centered on that at all. And maybe we could do it by hearing about your class that you just finished teaching.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, so I was also similarly trying to find, because I am so pulled in so many directions with like how to do my work, how to like move towards liberation and where to do it. And then I had read this book called We Rise, and it's by an indigenous youth, and I'm embarrassed now that I can't say his name. It's an Aztec name. Um,
We will find it and we will link
we'll
to
find
it
it and
and we'll
we'll,
learn
yeah,
how to
we'll put it
pronounce
in.
it.
And he's 17, and the thing that he says that really resonated with me was, or he writes, was like, find what you're passionate about, and from that place you can access the movement. You can access social justice and environmental justice because colonization exists in every single place. And so you can enact social change from where you already are. You don't need to go somewhere to do it. You don't need to learn a whole new thing to access this work. And so I was like, okay, I am really interested in my spiritual connection and how like my ancestors and my culture that I'm learning and reclaiming is showing up. And my process of learning my culture and relearning my culture as an American, as like a first-ish generation, where assimilation was something that was really practiced in my household in some ways, and also we were kind of traditional in other ways, is really like personal identity and spirituality and how you connect to ancestors. And so from that place, I created this course. It's a 6-week course called Ancestral Healing and Decolonization. And we learn about our ancestors that we have been so removed from. Everybody, not just, like people in the Filipino diaspora, but like white supremacy and this dominant culture and this colonized way of being has taken away so much from all of us, like white folks included. And so,
I just
yeah.
want to back up a little bit before you get further. And colonization, similar to white supremacy, has this like more narrow meaning to a lot of people, including up till recently myself, which is, a certain group of people goes to another place and conquers the people that live there and then takes all the land and kills a bunch of them. And that's colonization. Now, can you share like how that relates to us right now today in America?
Yeah. And also, so they not only, take the land, kill a bunch of people, but they also take away culture. So they say, you're not speaking Tagalog, you're not speaking Cebuano anymore here in the Philippines, you're speaking Spanish, and you're going to be going to Catholic church now instead of like whatever your like Anito indigenous ways of connecting to spirit are. Like we're now Catholic and we speak Spanish. And so that's like taking away culture and replacing it with theirs. And so that happens all over, and that happens here too, obviously, in the States, where we, slaughtered and raped and stole land, and then took away cultural, took away religion, took away like cultural icons like hair and textiles and ways of farming and ways of being in relation with the land, and replacing it with colonized ways.
Okay, and
And
then
so,
sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, that was sort of a complete thought. Yeah.
Great. And you just reminded me of something you said in your meditation last week, was that we all have colonized and decolonized in us as an individual.
Yeah.
I think I don't know where I would have gotten that if you didn't say
No,
it,
that
but I'm
was.
attributing it to you. Okay. And because what you're just describing is Spanish colonization of the Philippines and then European settlers in America. And both of us probably have all sides of that in us. Like my grandma has a grandparent who is Spanish. Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
so us living in America today, in North America, we are dealing with the legacy of that in our minds. How, like, our entire society is built from these perspectives of
Mhm.
prior colonizations. And that's where
Yeah.
your work comes in, right?
Yeah. So that's like the intersection of what we do. So trying to just unpack, like, for the first questions are like, who are you? Who are your people? And where do they come from? And so that's like the first week of the course is like digging in and figuring out, like, and saying like who your people are. And the powerful thing for mixed folks like myself, I'm like, indigenous Filipino, like my people are the Wari people of the Philippines, and also the Spanish and Portuguese that colonized my ancestors. Well, they are also my ancestors. The colonizers are my ancestors, and the colonized are also my ancestors from the Philippines. Here in the States, like my dad's from here, and he is part Lenape. He's like, there is some tribal blood in our family line, and also English and Welsh. And so in his own body, he's holding the two. And then in my body, I'm holding all of the trauma of being colonized and colonizing from my dad's side, and all the colonized and being colonized of my mom's side. And so moving through that trauma, releasing the shame and guilt from the colonized side, and releasing the trauma and victimization from the colonized side. I think I said that wrong. But does it make sense?
Right. The trauma from the colonized side. Yeah. And the guilt from the colonizer's side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so unpacking that and confronting it, which is not something that I had done before, a lot of the time, just because of the way I look, I just identify completely as like a brown person, but that's not true. And I hide from my whiteness because my whiteness is my shame. And I don't want to look at it. And I haven't for most of my life. And so now what really brought that forward too early in this work for me, is the book Me and White Supremacy. And in that book, we talk about, it's a workbook. And so I had never done the work in that way, where it very clearly talks about the mixed identity, like being multicultural, and some of those cultures being like colonizers, and like, how do I recognize my own like white supremacy within my own like physical body, and the ways that I move that through into the world. And so that book particularly was like very like the hardest work probably so far in this movement for myself. But yeah, so my course touches on personal, like cultivating personal identity, cultural identity, touches on nonviolence as a practice, white supremacy and solidarity, on liberation and imagination. And then I'm missing one week in right now. Can't remember what it is. And then the last week is like integration and alchemy. And from that last week, we zone in on what are our passions already, and how am I going to move all this learning into the world. So it's like a plan, of like what you're going to do, who you are, like why you're here, where your people come from, who are your ancestors, what pieces of your culture are you going to reclaim, and are you going to move through into the world, so that one, they're not forgotten, and two, that we're like moving through in our bodies, we're moving in an embodied way into decolonization. Like, we don't need to look like white dominant culture. We don't need to act like white dominant culture. We can be actually who we are and who our ancestors would want us to be.
And that statement becomes even more powerful when you notice that the class that you've curated is not just for non-white for people of color. It's a little more than half people of color and a little less than half white, and that is intentional. And we're going over time, but we got to talk about this. Please, tell us about that.
Yeah, so I'll be brief, which is not my strong suit, obviously.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, like, we're going to go over time. I want to hear about this. Take your time.
Okay. So when I approached this work initially upon moving to Oregon, well, I've done this work on my own prior, but when I got here, I just knew that part of my calling was to pursue this. And so I held a bunch of affinity spaces for people of color. And these spaces are always multicultural. So we have like a bunch of different combinations of like multicultural brown and black folks.
And affinity spaces, so like it's just brown and black folks, and they're dealing with their own healing and not with anything externally that could affect them in those spaces. Okay, cool.
Yeah, like for example, later this afternoon, I'm holding that at like a bonfire, like socially distanced affinity group here at my house. But then it became really clear to me that the work needs to be done together. And like, I also, like within myself, I need to be able to see my whiteness and my brownness and integrate them. And then also, how do we do that internally and then also in our community? So like, really to heal the community, we need to be doing this work together. And so it was a really hard thing to create and to move through, but doing that work side by side and allowing 14 people, the majority of which were people of color of different backgrounds, and then the minority in this group are white folks, was really powerful for everybody and myself. And then also, the reason that I do the majority of people of color is based on like a study that I read, and I can't even tell you where I read it, but it was like an academic study that I think it was specifically Black women won't speak their truth fully without code switching unless they're in the majority in the room. And I think it was like a specific number, like over 70%. And so while I haven't yet been able to cultivate that, what I do is I try to cultivate 70% of the group as being from like non-dominant culture, and then 30% being from dominant culture ish, and allowing the healing to happen in that way. And it has been really, I think, and from feedback that I've gotten from like the first finished course, is that that format really worked well for folks.
Oh, that's amazing, and I can't wait to hear about the next course and maybe share it with. I know that you probably got a ton of people signed up already, but just anybody who's watching
Future
or watches
courses.
this later would, I'm sure, love to see about future courses. Yeah.
Good.
Um, so to wrap it up, I think uh, something to share would be, what are some like individual things that we can do and or like get involved in the liberation movement outside of just as an individual, like in groups? Do you have any like recommendations or ideas for people who are just hearing about this for the first time? I guess sort
Or
of
just feeling called.
this is sort of like a asking for a friend situation, because like in the last 2 weeks I've kind of found my own ways, but also I'm sure that you will say things that I've never heard of before, so I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, how I started this journey for myself is always how I recommend people start for themselves, which is like to do the work internally, which I know is like, people want action first, but like really there can be more harm done if you're not first in alignment with like yourself. And so I would say spend time, like do the main white supremacy workbook, as like maybe not as engaging as that sounds. It's the hardest part. And then from there, like get together with other people and have these conversations around food. Maybe it's virtual for now, but like always giving your like just creating space and holding space for this work to come through, because doing it independently, which is what I did for years before bringing it forward like into my community healing, but like the community healing aspect, doing this along with other people is really, really powerful. And so yeah, of course, like writing your senators, writing your city council members about things that are important to you, like demanding justice for Breonna Taylor, who's still not those officers still aren't being held accountable. So stuff like that is really important, but then also do the work like internally, and then find your passion and ways in your life already that you can bring this healing into the forefront. And so like I was telling Kenzie, like what I don't know why I'm pretending like I'm not talking to you. Yeah, that was weird. Like what I told you earlier.
Maybe because I said I'm asking for a friend, but I'm
Yeah, so
really
now I'm
not.
like talking to the friend. Like
No,
what I told
I'm
you
asking for
earlier, it's really like, focused on like where can we shine light in our community already. Like you don't need to go to a different place that isn't comfortable for you, in your sphere of people. Like that's enough. Have
Yeah.
these conversations started. And I do want to say one thing that, and I know we're over time, but the card I pulled while you were talking about your journey was the Magician. And so the Magician, the message there is that you actually have the power to bring in, it means like as above, so below. So you can, whatever you imagine, you can actually bring forth into reality. So like you're a manifestor, like you can bring forth like whatever you imagine in like the huge expanse of your creativity, like that is your way of doing this work. and like you can just bring like whatever it is, like you can bring it earthside.
Oh man, what a gift. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that card. I'm so excited about it. Because
Yeah.
you have no idea how many ideas I have. It's like an overwhelming number of ideas,
Bring
but that's
them through.
nice.
Bring them through.
Yeah. um, amazing. May I play us out with a flute loop that is based
Yeah.
on the prompt magician instead of doing another sound bath? I just
I love it.
kind of feel like inspired to do that now that you've shared that card.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I shall do that. Thanks.
Amazing.
The magician. Oh, that was. Oh, every time I say this, because every time is a bunch of learning, but that's my favorite episode. Thank you so much for being here, Jess, and I'm so excited to get even more after this and have more conversations.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was so engaging and fun.
Yes.
The way the
Thanks for
liberation should feel.
thanks everyone for watching.